Hey everyone, it's Lisa Bongean from Primitive Gatherings, and I'm here today to introduce our third quilt in my favorite aunties series that we are doing. And this one just happens to be named Frannie, and she was one of my favorites. My mom had 9 sisters, so there's a lot of them, and some of them I knew better than others. So Frannie I knew really well. We did a lot with her family. So this is our pattern that we are going to need for this project. It can be downloaded or you can actually get a printed pattern if you want. We do have kits available for this project as well. And I'm just going to give you a couple little tips on how to work with the minis. So Frannie, and the size is 15 by 21, and the supplies needed is a 5-inch charm pack. So we need 35 darks for this one. We need 2/3 yard of a background and then a 1/2 yard of backing. And then we also need 3/4 inch triangle paper. Now you can use the sheets or the charms for this. It doesn't matter. We are going to be cutting it up. So that is that pattern information. Okay, so just a little refresher on how to work with minis, or because maybe this is the first one that you've run into, but this is our second year of making minis and we are on the 3rd one of this series. So I just want to remind you that we use starch, especially when we're doing small little pieces like this. And we have lots of videos out there on starching, but just to give you a quick overview, you would just totally saturate your fabric completely wet, hang them to dry. I like hanging inside, I do not like hanging outside. You can do outside if there's no wind, but you don't want your fabric blowing in the wind because that will make it less stiff. So we really want it just to dry, and I don't take the time to iron it dry because again, that's too much time and I don't like to waste time. So I just let it dry on a drying rack, and then when it's all dry, it's nice and crisp and crunchy and stiff, and then I iron them and then I proceed to cut. So that is the starch that I use, and I buy directly from Faultless, and it is a nice price that you get from them. I believe it's like $2.49 a can, and they do give volume discounts that I probably buy like 6 cases at a time. So I get a nice, I think it's 10 or 15% off if you buy in bulk. And then I just want to remind you to make sure you're using a high quality fine thread when you're working with minis as well. I like Aurifil, and this is one of my favorite numbers, 2310. And then we are going to use the triangle paper, and we need 3/4 inch finished for this one. And then I want to just kind of remind you about rulers. So make sure you have some smaller rulers when you're cutting these smaller pieces instead of trying to work with your 8 by 24 inch ruler. And I happen to have designed some from Creative Grids. I do a 6 by 6, a 3 by 7, a 5 by 15. And those are my 3 favorite rulers for working with minis. Set those aside over there. I don't like them to go too far because then they go away. And of course we always need some nice pins and steam iron that we have. All right, so here is the quilt. I'll give you a quick little close-up here of it. It is super fun to make. And the guys did this really close quilting on it. I'll show you the back in a second. So hopefully Kaylee can get a nice close-up of the quilting in the back. All right. So here is the charm pack that we use. It's called Stonebridge from Jill Shawlish from Yellow Creek Quilt Designs. This is her charm pack that I used. And then I used a print from my Pumpkin Spice Gatherings as the background. Now in the charm pack, when you open it up, these right here are 35 dark prints. So you have enough, and you will get doubles of some of them in here, and that's perfectly fine. But then there's some in here that I chose not to use for obvious reasons, right? Some of them are too light. Some of them, you know, some of them you can't use this. This is just gonna look like it's too big to be cut up. So those are the ones I did not use. So don't worry that you don't use every one. And then we have a couple, you know, because when I looked at this, it is beautiful, right? But I wanted to add a couple other little sparklers in there. So I added, I think, 5 more little colors in there as well, just to spark it up. A couple pinks, because that goes very well with this era. And I do believe that when we do a kit, we're going to give you some of these pinks and cheddar and green, and we're going to add those charms to it as well. But don't be afraid to add to a kit when you get one. I always like to do that. I always like to take a fabric from my collection and put it in the quilt, because then your quilt is unique from any other one out there, because nobody possibly is going to pick the same fabrics that you did. All right. So I hope that makes total sense. Now this, I'm just going to push this forward now because I don't really need that. And then I'll just kind of keep that halfway in the screen. Does that look okay, Kaylee? All right. So now the cutting directions are all in here. We are going to take your triangle paper and we are going to, I do this with my rotary cutter, but just for ease here, I'm going to cut this. So you're going to cut the whole strip apart, but we only need this for each of our charm squares. And then in the directions, I want you to pay attention, because after you starch your fabrics, you're going to have a charm square that's going to probably be like 5 inches by 4 3/4. All right, so I have an orientation on there, how I want you to lay out and cut from each charm pack so you can get all the things, the most out of that charm pack. So you're going to lay this on your 2 charms, not your charms, your charm pack and a strip of the background fabric, and you're going to stitch all of the dashed lines, and then you're going to cut all of the solid all the way around in between and then on the diagonal, and then you will end up with, let's see, 4 of these little units here from each one of these. So you can tell by 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how you know how many you're going to get when you layer these together. So these are just leftovers from making the quilt, because I added those other colors in there. I had a few that I did not use from my charm pack. So when I lay this out, hopefully I do it right without looking at the pattern, but after you make 140 of them, you pretty much know how to do it in your sleep. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to sew this together here, and then I'm going to add this top to form this unit right here. So that one was left over that I didn't use. Okay, I'm going to go over to the machine and quickly sew these together. And when you sew minis, you might want to lower your stitch length just a smidge lower than what you normally would stitch a regular one. I go like maybe a little bit under 2. And I have this little leader on here because it never fails that every time I do a video, I unthread my machine. I think I'm just so excited to pull it out. And so then this one is all set to go. I'm just going to push that to the dark, and then I'm going to add this triangle to the top. Now, I do not cut this off right now. I like to leave all of my dog ears on until I am done piecing, because if something goes a little funny with your block, you have all the parts and things needed on that block. Okay, so now after I have all these stitched, now I would go over to the iron. I shouldn't do this, but I'm going to do it once so it won't hurt too much. But you don't ever want to iron on your mat here. Haven't used that yet, so here we go. I'm going to press that back like that. All right, so now I have 2 triangle units here. And I've cut my other background fabric in half. Now these are going to lay directly on top of this one. So you know that this unit right here is perfect if you cut it perfectly, and this should fit nicely on there. Is this always going to be exactly perfect? No, once in a while you might have to fudge one or pull this little piece over, but they should pretty much line up if you stitched your 1/4 inch and your 1/4 inch. So now I'm going to run this through. Oh, and what the heck, let's do this one as well too. I have a bunch of orphan blocks that live at my house, and one of these days I'm going to have enough little orphan blocks just to make an orphan quilt, or, you know, from all the test blocks that we do. Does anybody else have orphan blocks like I do? All right, so this is perfect. So do you see how it's off just a little smidge? But that's okay, right? Because I know that that triangle, that light triangle, is the right size. So I'm not going to try to move that up there. I'm going to leave that. So this, I have a nice 90-degree right here, and I'm just going to stitch that, and it's going to come out just fine, okay? You'd almost think I planned that, like that one's perfect, and this one's just a smidge, you know, but there's still a nice enough seam allowance there that now when I press this, I didn't cut off my point, it's still going to measure the right size. So you can press this back or you can press this open. And we can cut off those dog ears too now. You can put your ruler on there and cut those off, or you can just use your scissors. So I like to press these open. So there we are. And then again, you can take your ruler and your rotary cutter, and you can trim dog ears like this. And then you can lay your ruler on there at the same time just to make sure that your unit is the right size. So you can trim off your dog ears that way. And see, I got nothing but dog ears. So it's not like you don't need to make these bigger and then trim them down. Or you can do this. So see how this is simple too. So whether you like to use your rotary cutter and ruler or just your scissors, either one of them works. So that's how simple it is to make these little blocks to make our third mini called Frannie. So here's another look at this cute little beauty, and you could probably make 2 little quilts too if you want a smaller quilt, but I wanted to use a lot of the charm pack, so I kind of made a little bit bigger quilt here. But this would make, if you only did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 7 by 10, you'd have 2 little mini quilts, one for you and maybe one for your friend. All right, so that's all I have for you today. Join me next month for our monthly mini series.